Tinder will destroy society. And before you call me crazy, before you call me an alarmist, let me explain to you why. Let me first start off by stating the obvious. It is hard to understate the prevalence of social media in daily life. And of course, this also includes romance and dating. Now, for the first time ever in human history, most couples are meeting online. So, most people in America, if you are a couple, you've met someone, you're in a relationship together, you probably met this person online and not just walking around in person at your job, on the street, wherever. Some estimates vary. Some people say it's 40%, not 60%. However, there is absolutely nothing to suggest that this trend will not continue. We've known that people have been getting lonelier since at least the 90s. And obviously everyone knows that social media is totally warping why and how we interact with each other. And with each successive generation, more time is spent online. In fact, in, I would say, no less than 20 years, we will reach a point where it will be abnormal if you met your significant other in real life, not online. And it is an open secret. These dating app companies will deny it, but it is an open secret that being on one of these platforms makes it harder for you to find connections if you are a man. And dating apps, specifically Tinder, have already had negative social impacts despite the fact that they are not yet ubiquitous. Now, to reliably maintain a quality relationship, a man really needs three things. That is a job, a house or an apartment, and a car. And we already have a system that doesn't necessarily set Americans up for success in obtaining these three things. More men than ever are NEETs, for instance. So what are they doing? They are indoors, probably online all day, in homes that are probably not their own, that they don't personally own, not out there forming the relationships with women that they want to form. Forecast says more grumpy, socially inept shut-ins. The media, however, knows these people are at risk for violent outbursts. We see all these articles pontificating about alienated young men and toxic masculinity being the causing of shootings. You know, they know the profile, and even if the cause for the shooting, the identified cause, the impetus, is not directly related to the shooter's ability to form relationships with women and their social standing, you know, whether or not they have a car, house, and a job. Even if the stated reason for the shooting is something other, something seemingly arbitrary, or apparently for no reason at all, they never seem to actually ever check all three of those boxes. Having those three things is a basic test of your competency as a person, and almost universally they fail. And the media doesn't actually want to solve these problems. In fact, they want to create more of these people. The end of that last article I showed on the screen was literally just, this is why we need to restrict access to guns. Totally not addressing the root of the problem whatsoever. It's really just because they want to get rid of guns. Right. The Billionaire Class uses right-wing parties to protect their power and left-wing parties to expand it. Anything that challenges that paradigm just gets banned, just gets canceled. And they want a sheepish, weak population that can be pushed around, right? They do not want you to be emotionally stable, they do not want you to be physically fit, and they do not want you to be financially independent. They want you unstable, unhealthy, and dependent on the government. Thus, there's also been this shift toward subscription services, the whole gig economy, no one actually owning anything outright, preventing people from having those three things that liberate them from slavery. One of the greatest predictors of being right-wing is being a property owner, living in a bedroom community. That silly old white-picketed American dream that everyone seems to have given up on in the past 10 years. The sort of multi-family unit communal living they want to force on everyone does not produce strong, independent, right-wing people, but leftists instead. You know, and these are the conditions leftists want to live under because they are stooges of this billionaire elite. And I think we've hit a point here in America where the roles of expansion and protection can be simultaneously fulfilled by just the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party is now a sort of superfluous vestigial organ and can be the object of censorship. The Republican Party now has become infested with people who challenge or at least come close enough to challenging this power that all it's good for is being cut down to size. And there's really nothing to suggest that people are going to wake up one day and realize that the Democrats are clearly the worst of the two evils and are actually actively destroying society with their dangerous rhetoric and failing social programs and dysgenic ideologies. But back to Tinder. So the preferences of this top 10% of men will increasingly dictate what people value in partners. Women will conform to these standards in order to meet demand and secure relationships. And this could easily be, these demands could be terrible. They could just be bad stuff. Whatever they want. It's totally up to this 10%. So in 10 years, it could be like a point of pride to say that your girlfriend looks, acts, or even is an OnlyFans model. People who are influential in the culture that many people look up to have done this. So you look at Barstool Sports, No Jumper, all these popular podcasts, etc., and you see former porn stars who have sort of re-entered mainstream popularity. Lana Rhoades and Mia Khalifa are two such examples where you could even mention their names in polite company. There's even a popular streamer, Amaranth, who, while she did not start out as a porn star, still has an OnlyFans. And if the top 10% of men want little Amaranths, little Lana Rhodeses, little Mia Khalifas running around, that's what they're going to get. We are slated for a future where people live in these very atomized conditions, where women are unable to form and maintain long-term monogamous relationships because they're competing with 80% of women over 10% of men. And there are large numbers of socially inept, incompetent, embittered men who do not have the tools to sustain society. Some of whom will be radicalized online and have these explosive meltdowns with deadly consequences. And the result of this will be the justification of and expansion of the surveillance state with really nothing to curtail it, because any countervailing force has been canceled. And it's very possible that a normal conservative in the next 30 years will be either a progressive, a reactionary, or an incel. And incels will create progressives, because you already see people saying right now, oh, I left the right because it was just too extreme, and all the extremism, the violent extremism of the right. Despite the fact that leftism has caused rioting in every major city in the country before. And, maybe this could be mitigated slightly by having apps that alter their mechanics so they're not just swipe left, swipe right like Tinder, like Hinge or Bumble. But I know on Bumble, it's still, the ratio is still almost 70-30 men to women. Stats are slightly harder to come by for Bumble, but I suspect it's not much easier. And the other tough part is, if you do get a match and you're an average man, the possibility is that it's a woman who is part of the bottom 20% of women. So she could very easily be a bridge troll who doesn't take care of herself. the female equivalent of an incel. And to really illustrate what this future will look like, let's return to one of those graphs I showed earlier. 30%, almost 30% between 18 and 30 reporting no sex in the past year. We haven't even reached peak saturation of these dating apps, and we're already seeing stuff like this. Imagine a scenario where your average 15-year-old, whatever generation, I guess Generation Beta, that's kind of a fitting name, coming after Generation Alpha. Generation Beta, where the average 15-year-old, let's say they're 15 at this point, has parents that met online. This person's parents probably already have very skewed views of relationships and dating based on their own personal experiences using the apps to meet each other. One can only imagine, one can only conjecture at what their child will be like, how they will be socialized, how they behave as they grow up. And if you don't believe me that this is a real thing looming just around the corner, where more than half of men are like perpetual virgins and there are tons of incel terrorists running around, then just look at Japan. This is an advanced, sophisticated, industrialized country where people simply don't know how to interact with each other anymore. And I believe this is in store for the United States. It's very quickly becoming a reality, and basically every other Western country. These economic factors, these material conditions set us up for this crisis, and Tinder is the straw that will break the camel's back. Nobody's going to care about these men or the welfare of young men generally. Economic improvement is temporary and halting at that. I really doubt that Democrats are going to, there'll be another faction of the Democratic Party that moves in and actually improves the economy. That's not happening. That's not happening. The American far left has nothing to offer but stupid stuff like the Green New Deal. When even corporate Democrat Pete Buttigieg is saying, just use your electric vehicle. Those are the future. We need to prioritize walking. They're not going to find a way out of this for us because it's not in their interest to. The only way I could really see out of this scenario is Trump getting reelected in 2024 and then DeSantis getting elected in 2028 and reelected in 2032 if we're going to think really far off about this. That's the only way I could see some of our problems getting solved at this point. I think both of them would make the moves to restore the economy and empower people to have the building blocks they need and the tools they need to live more successful and stable lives. The Democrats aren't going to come to your rescue. The rhinos will not come to your rescue. And every second of this will be an uphill fight. Anyway, that's just my opinion on how politics will develop in the future, how Tinder is actually the straw that broke the camel's back and will destroy society. There's Counter-Revolution's prediction. Incel terrorists. Oh, and by the way, I predict that Harry Styles will eventually come out as gay. Because Harry Styles is not just part of the top 10%. He's like part of the top 0.001%. And I've heard this theory, and it's possible that it could be true, because he can get any woman he wants because he's Harry Styles. He's bored, so he's looking for something else. And this could become like a real problem with the men at the very, very top of society. The ancient Greeks may have even suffered from a problem somewhat similar to this. Not to mention all the awful, awful social engineering that's going on with kids these days, that liberal and progressive parents are putting their children through because they actually believe that this will put them ahead in society. So one day, a long time from now, I don't think it would be impossible that we witness this open, strange, pederastic institution that is official or quasi-official and somehow connected to class, status, and education. But that's another story. and this video has already been filled with enough conjecture and wild speculation. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and Counter Evolution will see you in the next one.